Up to now in Cochrane database, there are 104 Cochrane reviews and 50 protocols with a network meta-analysis title. Examples of recently published network meta-analysis are, for instance, a comparison of antibiotic treatments for spontaneous bacterial peritonitis, interventions for maintenance of surgical induced remission in Crohn's disease, etc. And so here, these are the conveners of the Comparing Multiple Interventions Methods group. So the group covers methodology in two topics. One is the network meta-analysis, and one is the overviews of reviews. And I will conclude with some upcoming training events for those that are interested to learn more about network meta-analysis. So I have to say that we strongly recommend that all reviews include all network meta-analysis include a knowledgeable statistician in the review team, as well as knowledgeable clinicians. Every year we offer numerous workshops at Cochrane Colloquia. And so there are a few upcoming short courses. We have now in December a 3-day network meta-analysis course in Paris, and the deadline for registration is in 2 days from now. There is also a 2-day course at the University of Bristol in December. There is a 3-day course at Swiss Epidemiology Winter School in January. There is also a 2-day course at the Epi Summer at Columbia University in June. And there are also more workshops that will be announced later. So thank you very much. And I think we can continue with the rest of questions.
Hi, yeah, we have some more questions. One is, between Frequentis and Bayesian framework, what would be the parameters that would affect your choice? For example, if there are multiple one-arm studies, what would change in the inference of the former?
Well, the only difference between the two is that in Bayesian framework, the Bayesian framework is a little bit more flexible. So if we want to run some more advanced statistical models that require the statistician to program himself some things, then the Bayesian framework might be better. But for a standard analysis, it doesn't matter which one we will use, and actually the Frequentis framework is faster. So because we just have, so both Stata and R, they have readily available packages that we can use, and so we can very quickly run the analysis there. If we need to do some more advanced thing, then the Bayesian framework offers a higher flexibility. So otherwise, any framework will give valid results. There's no other other aspect to base the choice on.
Will the SUCRA or mean ranks consider the variance and mean trade-off?
I'm not sure I understand this question. So whether they consider the variance?
I think they can consider the variance and the mean as well. That they take both into account when computing the ranks.
Yeah, sure. So the SUCRAs and mean ranks, they take into account the entire distribution of the relative effects. And so they just provide a summary, a nice summary of the relative effects. So that's why we're saying that they are not substitute, but for example, in the network of antidepressants that we have 21 treatments, by looking at all the relative effects, it is very difficult to see which treatments are probably the most appropriate to use. So obtaining the ranking gives a nice summary, and when we look at it in accompanied by the relative effects, we can easier draw conclusions. So the advantage of SUCRA and mean ranks in comparison to the probability of big database is that they take into account the entire distribution of the relative effects.
Are there any differences between using R and Stata for the software?
Generally not. There are few things that Stata can do and few things that R can do. So, for example, in R, there is a component level meta-analysis. Component level network meta-analysis has been implemented. In Stata, not yet. In Stata, there are some, for instance, you can run network meta-regression. In R, not. But all the standard analysis can be done in both software. Then there are few differences between the two.
Someone's asked whether the RevMan protocol template will be available in RevMan Web, or is it just in RevMan 5?
I think I'm not the appropriate person to answer that question.
I can answer that if you want. We've basically created it in collaboration with the comparing multiple interventions methods group, and it is just in a RevMan file, so it's available separate to the actual to RevMan 5 or RevMan Web, so it could be used for either. Someone else has also asked about guidelines on reporting, whether there's Prisma guidance available.
Yes, so there are several guidelines, and actually there is a Prisma extension statement. So there is a Prisma checklist specific for network meta-analysis. There is the protocol paper that I showed, and there are several tutorial and guidance papers on how to perform and report a network meta-analysis and what we should be careful at.
The recent version of the handbook recommends using a formal statistical approach to examine differences between subgroups in pairwise meta-analysis. How would this be done for examining subgroups in network meta-analysis?
So subgroup analysis, it's more or less the same with pairwise meta-analysis. The only difference is that we might end up with different treatments across subgroups. And this challenges a little bit the interpretation of the results. But in terms of technically, there's no difference between pairwise and network meta-analysis. The only issue is that we might end up with different treatments, so we should be careful how we'll compare the results across the subgroups and how we'll interpret the differences.
Could you comment on network meta-analysis for observational data and limitations?
I think the main, apart from all the known limitations of meta-analysis of observational data, I think that one of the main problems in the case of network meta-analysis is how to defend transitivity. Because we know that there are important differences across observational studies and across observational and RCT studies. There is some work on network meta-analysis of observational studies, which takes into account, for example, the difference in the risk of bias of observation. For instance, there are some models that allow to use observational evidence as prior information to a network meta-analysis of RCTs, or there are models that allow to downgrade observational evidence because of the increased risk of bias. So there are models that allow to include observational studies in network meta-analysis, but certainly there's room for a lot more work on that.
If there are serious concerns about transitivity, instead of doing the network meta-analysis, should authors do a narrative summary instead, or a pairwise meta-analysis?
Yeah, if there are important concerns and we believe that transitivity is not plausible, then it would be reasonable to not to do the network meta-analysis and do pairwise meta-analysis. Because if we believe that transitivity is not plausible, then this means that probably we will get invalid results. So it is not sensible to continue with network meta-analysis.
Just trying to see if there's any others that we haven't had answered. Can you recommend a critical appraisal tool for network meta-analysis?
Yeah, so I showed two tools. One is, as I said, from the grade working group, one of the compared multiple interventions methods group. Of course, since I am a member of the multiple interventions methods group, I would recommend that one. But of course, people can choose whichever they feel that it's more appropriate for them, and it, as long as they are used correctly, they will end up, they will both allow for meaningful conclusions. As I said, there is a webinar later. Maybe, Kerry, do you know when it is?
In January. The one in January is on cinema, and then the one in February is on grade approach.
Yeah, so I think it would make sense that people attend these two webinars, and they will see the advantages and disadvantages of each approach.
I've included the website in the chat box as well for everyone, to the cinema website. We've had a question about whether it's the same procedure that you follow to register a network meta-analysis in Cochrane. Yes, is the answer. You would go to the Cochrane review group that the topic was relevant to, and you would start there